On Wednesday, the House passed a piece of legislation that, if followed through to its conclusion, could lead to the banning of the social media app TikTok here in the United States. The passage made for some interesting bedfellows politically as far as who voted for and who voted against. But the question that I have is very simple. Is this really such a good idea? Wonder what I'm talking about? Hold on, folks. We're going to get into all of this in just one second. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative. Step on up to my electronic front porch and let's talk. The social media app TikTok has been controversial ever since it began to be used here in the United States in the late 2000 teens and early 2020s. Controversial for a number of different reasons. One, its pervasive use among American youth, which some people feel is not exactly a good thing, but also for its ties to the Chinese Communist government. And there have been people on both sides of the political spectrum who've been for and against doing something about TikTok in one form or another. Well, finally, on Wednesday, the House took a step that has been building for a while and now has put the wheels in motion to possibly lead to a banning of the social media platform. So let's take a look at the New York Times, look at some of the commentary for and against on this, and then I'll give you my take on the whole thing. So we will begin with the New York Times. Headline: House passes bill to force TikTok sale from Chinese owner or ban the app. The legislation received wide bipartisan support, with both Republicans and Democrats showing an eagerness to appear tough on China. Article written by Sapna Maheshwari. Didn't think a West Virginia guy could say that sort of name, did you? David McCabe and Annie Carney. We read the following. The House on Wednesday passed a bill with broad bipartisan support that would force TikTok's Chinese owners to either sell the highly popular video app or have it banned in the United States. The move escalates a showdown between Beijing and Washington over the control of a wide range of technologies that could affect national security, free speech, and the social media industry. Republican leaders fast tracked the bill through the House with limited debate, and it passed on a lopsided vote of 352 to 65, reflecting widespread backing for legislation that would take direct aim at China in an election year. The action came despite TikTok's efforts to mobilize its 170 million U.S. users against the measure and amid the Biden administration's push to persuade lawmakers that Chinese ownership of the platform poses grave national security risks to the United States, including the ability to meddle in elections. The result was a bipartisan coalition behind the measure that included Republicans who defied former President Donald J. Trump in supporting it, and Democrats who also fell in behind a bill that President Biden has said he would sign. The bill faces a difficult road to passage in the Senate, where Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York, and the majority leader, has been non-committal about bringing it to the floor for a vote, and where some lawmakers have vowed to fight it. And even if it passes the Senate and becomes law, it likely will face legal challenges. But Wednesday's vote was the first time a measure that could widely ban TikTok for consumers was approved by a full chamber of Congress. The app has been under threat since 2020, with lawmakers increasingly arguing that Beijing's relationship with the TikTok parent company, ByteDance, raises national security risks. The bill is aimed at getting ByteDance to sell TikTok to a non-Chinese owner within 6 months. The president would sign off on the sale if it resolved national security concerns. If that sale did not happen, the app would be banned. Representative Mike Gallagher, the Wisconsin Republican who is among the lawmakers leading the bill, said on the floor before the vote that, quote, it forces TikTok to break up with the Chinese Communist Party. This is a common sense measure to support our national security, he said. Alex Harrick, a spokesman for TikTok, said in a statement that the House, quote, process was secret and the bill was jammed through for one reason: it is a ban. We are hopeful that the Senate will consider the facts, listen to their constituents, and realize the impact on the economy. 7 million small businesses and 170 million Americans who use our service, he added. Okay, let's get into this. Full disclosure up front, I do not use TikTok. Okay? Trust me, I'm a low-tech redneck. I have enough trouble turning on a computer. Don't give me one more social media app that I've got to somehow figure out how to master. That said, however, I also recognize that TikTok is a widely used product by millions upon millions of Americans. Now, do I also recognize the fact that ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, has a very unsavory relationship with the Chinese Communist Party? Yep. It is reported that a Chinese Communist Party member is on the board of directors for ByteDance. And let's be honest about it, any business that does business in China answers to the Chinese Communist Party and to the Chinese government. That said, however, I am very, very much against this bill. I am very, very leery of it. My problems with it basically come down to this. Okay, you don't like the fact that the Chinese Communist government could wind up meddling in American elections. Okay, call me crazy, but couldn't domestic social media platforms do the same thing? I mean, after all, what would it take for Twitter to maybe change some algorithms around and possibly, hypothetically, suppress a story as it relates to Joe Biden or one of his family members, just for the sake of a pure hypothetical, of course. I mean, nothing like that would ever happen in America. But I mean, look, if you're going to use that argument for banning TikTok, then shouldn't we ban Twitter? Or maybe not even Twitter. I mean, why stop there? Why not say, no, I guess the same thing could happen with Facebook. What if Facebook again did a little razzmatazz on the computer, hit a few keystrokes, and then voila, a story that ought to be trending, no one's seeing. And consequently, you could make an argument that maybe those actions, the little bit of razzmatazz that you did, changed around the results of an election. I don't know. Call me crazy. I just don't see how banning the tool somehow stops the problem. It's like the argument about gun control for me. Everyone's like, we've got to ban guns. Why? People are getting murdered. Okay, let's say you banned all the guns. Does that mean murders are going to stop? Take it back to the social media platform side of it. Okay, let's say that somehow through all this, we wind up banning TikTok. Does that mean that our elections are not going to be meddled in? I don't know. Those are just some initial thoughts that I have. But as far as the bill itself is concerned, it brought about, like I said, some very strange bedfellows together. Now, the vote on this, there are only 65 members of the House that voted against this, but who it is will surprise you. Let me take you to the New Republic, a publication we don't normally use here on the front porch. Just not necessarily because I don't like it, just normally I don't have cause to use it. But I did find this interesting. The House voted 352 to 65 to pass the bill. Of the 65 members who voted against it, there were 50 Democrats and 15 Republicans. And when I go through some of these names, it's going to surprise you who voted against this bill. I mean, for example, Andy Biggs, Republican Arizona; Dan Bishop, Republican North Carolina. Go down through here, Cori Bush, Democrat from Mississippi or Missouri. Forget which of the two that is. Warren Davidson, Republican from Ohio. Matt Gaetz, Republican from Florida. Ruben Gallego, a staunch Democrat out of Arizona. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican out of Georgia. Jim Himes, Democrat out of Connecticut. Sheila Jackson Lee, a liberal out of Texas. Ro Khanna, Democrat out of California. Zoe Lofgren, California. Nancy Mace, Republican Congresswoman from South Carolina. The inestimable Thomas Massie, Republican out of Kentucky, and so on. So there's bipartisan support for the ban, but what I found interesting were the individuals who voted against this bill and the names. Normally, you'd never see these people in the same voting block together, but they stood together on this bill. Now, as far as some of the arguments for and against, I take you to Representative Dan Crenshaw, Republican from Texas, who voted in favor of this and was one of the proponents on the House floor. I got a clip that runs about 1:37. I'm going to play it in its entirety. I might stop it if I feel the need to, but I want to give you the flavor for what the argument is in favor of doing this. So, take you to the House floor, and here is Representative Crenshaw.
I want to address all of my colleagues who I think are confused about the First Amendment, confused about the nature of TikTok, and confused about the intentions of the Chinese Communist Party. Let me explain this really simple. TikTok is owned by ByteDance. ByteDance is in China, and when you're in China, you have to do whatever the Chinese Communist Party says you have to do. That's
okay. I don't necessarily dispute that. Please continue.
According to the national intelligence law passed in 2017, if they want you to spy for them, you will spy for them.
Okay, that is a distinct possibility. Go on.
That's how that works. They have a board member from the Chinese Communist Party on ByteDance. You wouldn't allow a radio tower owned by the Chinese to be put up right in the middle of Washington, D.C., and then allow it to just put out Chinese propaganda. You'd probably complain about that. That's exactly what TikTok can be used for, because millions of Americans are addicted to it. They see it, and the Chinese can absolutely manipulate those algorithms.
Hold it. Wait a minute. Stop. I have a question. Go back to what I said a few minutes ago. All right, he's talking about deliberate manipulation by way of this social media app. But again, could you not make the same argument about Twitter, Facebook, Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute? I mean, name the social media app that you want to. So because it could be used for something bad, we've got to ban it. And because it's the Chinese communists that are using it, we've got to ban it. Now, don't get me wrong. I am no lover of the Chinese Communist Party for any number of different reasons. But the argument that says just because I could use it for something and that would be bad is the reason why I ought to control it and or ban it, I don't like where that's going, because frankly, that opens the door to the government deciding a whole lot of things that they don't like that they could very well ban in the name of protecting you and me. But anyway, let's get back to old Crenshaw and see what else he's got to say about this deal.
The First Amendment does not give the Chinese Communist Party the right to American data or the right to manipulate the minds of Americans.
Okay, hold on, Danny boy. I agree with you on that part. No, we shouldn't be letting the Chinese Communist Party have access to our data or data transfers, which there'll be another clip played a little later that goes into that. So I agree with you on that point.
That would be a really weird interpretation of the First Amendment. The primary counterarguments to this bill seem to be as shallow as, well, it doesn't do everything I want, and Facebook's really mean, and I don't want them to make money. So what, then that means you owe Chinese access to all of our data and access to manipulate the minds of Americans? I don't think so. This is a very specific bill, very specifically tailored. It does not harm American companies or American individuals. You know it. You got to read it. Pass this bill.
Well, you got your wish, Danny boy. It passed. Now, that's some of the arguments in favor of it. Now, again, it's not just him, and it's not limited. This was across the board. Like I said, the for and against on this made for some very strange political bedfellows. Now, as far as the arguments against, they were led primarily in the House by Thomas Massie, Republican of Kentucky. I take you to his Twitter page because he does bring up some perfectly valid points. The so-called TikTok ban is a Trojan horse. The president will be given the power to ban websites, not just apps. The person breaking the new law is deemed to be the U.S. or offshore internet hosting service or app store, not the, quote, foreign adversary. And he points to two parts of the bill. The term foreign adversary controlled application means, quote, a website, desktop application, mobile application, or augmented or immersive technology application that is operated directly or indirectly through a parent company, subsidiary, or affiliate. Goes a bit further. Prohibition of foreign adversary-controlled applications. It shall be unlawful for an entity to distribute, maintain, or update, or enable a foreign adversary-controlled application by carrying out within the land or maritime borders of the United States any of the following: providing services to distribute, maintain, or update such foreign adversary controlled application by means of a marketplace, providing internet hosting services. So Massey may be onto something here. Now, as far as other arguments for and against, here's something from Nancy Mace, Republican from South Carolina. From her Twitter page, I don't want Joe Biden or any other president picking which apps I can or cannot put on my phone or which websites I can visit. Patriot Act 2.0, and it still doesn't protect Americans or their data. And I'll say this, I gotta agree with Mace on this one, with a caveat. Let's understand something. There's nobody on this bill, either for it or against it, whose hands are completely clean. Okay? I am willing to admit and freely acknowledge that there are people who are supporting this, who are against this, who are doing so for a lot of different reasons. You've got people switching positions, and might I add, one of them is Donald Trump. At one time, Trump was trying to get TikTok either sold off, much like what this bill is doing right now, or out and out banned if he couldn't get the thing sold off or separated from ByteDance. However, he's changed his position on that. So no one's hands are completely clean on this thing, but I gotta agree with Nancy Mace. Are we about to hand the executive branch the ability to determine what apps we can and cannot look at? Seems like a perfectly valid argument. And also, say what you want to about Thomas Massey, but he's not given to hyperbole. He's pretty level-headed. Now, you may not agree with his positions all the time, but he does his homework. I've got to give him a little bit of credence on this one. We're opening the door here to let the executive branch, regardless of whether it's Joe Biden or whatever president that it is, say that in the name of national security, we've got to ban a certain activity or access to a certain technology. In the name of national security. Now, how many times in recent years have we heard that argument made in different contexts? Or am I possibly dreaming that one up out of thin air? Anyway, let's continue. Leanne Starr, some of you may be familiar with her, some of you may not. She's a social media influencer who herself uses TikTok. She's got a pretty interesting take on this, and I think it's pretty reasonable to bring into the discussion. So folks, do me a favor and take a listen to what Miss Starr has to say about this whole TikTok ban bill. And we'll play it just now.
Don't get me wrong, I think TikTok is an absolute cesspool and it poisons people's minds the way that they will do anything, even exploit their own children when people are telling them that your children are being exploited, but they still do it because, that fame and money is just too sweet. So yes, in that aspect I do, but if you're going to ban TikTok, well, what about Temu? Are you going to ban Temu too? Or does some lobbyist make money from Temu? So not yet, because if it's about data, then you cutting it from military people's phones and personnel that works for the government makes sense. But everyone, y'all take our data constantly. And Lord knows what you do with it. The Patriot Act, which is used against us Americans. So I'm just curious, how far is this going to go?
Okay, and that's a perfectly valid point. Are we about to step on a slippery slope and slide down someplace we really ought not go, or more to the point, we don't want to go? One last set of commentary about this, and this one is an interview with Benny Johnson, one of the heroes of this channel, and one of the guys I wouldn't mind seeing my channel emulate his success, but he's gotten there with a lot of hard work, so it's not like he hasn't earned it. Had an interview with Vivek Ramaswamy and Mike Lee, senator from Utah. I want to play Vivek Ramaswamy's comments because he's been sort of at the forefront of this whole thing. So folks, do me a favor and take a listen to this conversation because I think it's very, very interesting.
Something I did want to touch on here briefly with both of you is the TikTok ban that just passed the House. Your thoughts on it, starting with Vivek?
Yeah. So look, my thought is TikTok has major issues. There's at least three categories of major issues. Number one is persuasion threats to the United States of America, the Chinese government or Chinese affiliated entities determining what U.S. users do or don't see. Number two is forced data transfers to the Chinese Communist Party from a US tech company. And number three is addictive tendencies in kids under the age of 15. Major problems. However, I think this bill fails across the board to address those issues. It's incomplete in addressing those issues, while also creating a civil libertarian nightmare, giving to the Biden administration exclusive executive authority effectively to decide which kinds of so-called foreign adversary controlled apps or even websites are going to be shut down or not, or are going to be owned by whom. And so if you're concerned with the Biden administration engaging in backdoor censorship using tech companies to do it, I think it's a bad idea to give that Biden administration even broader executive latitude to do the same thing. If you want to address the issue, as I do favor doing, address the issue across the board. Social media in kids under the age of 16, it's an issue. Address it. Force data transfers to the CCP. I don't like it if Google's doing it. I don't like it if Airbnb is doing it. I don't like it if TikTok is doing it. Deal with it across the board rather than in a company-specific manner. And the specific manner in which this bill is written does two things. One is it's designed to exclude the very companies that have been lobbying for it. This is a Facebook lobbying bill. That's a dirty little secret in Washington, D.C. It's designed to exclude U.S. companies from being burdened. I'd say include all companies, U.S. or not, from stopping data transfers to the CCP. Look at Airbnb and what they've been doing for years. Wall Street Journal reporting a few years ago, put an end to it across the board, TikTok to Airbnb to anybody else. And the other thing is, don't give this much unfettered executive authority to a president, including currently, that would be President Biden, to even broaden the scope of using tech companies, be they Google, be they TikTok, be they Facebook, be they YouTube, to do through the back door what the government couldn't do through the front door. So that's my view, is a wrong bill to at least accomplish a worthy goal, accomplish it in the right way, ban the behavior rather than playing whack-a-mole one company at a time.
Now, regardless of what you may say about Vivek Ramaswamy, and Lord knows people have in one form or another, I think on this one he's absolutely right. He focuses his attentions on the Biden administration. I argue that it ought to be more broad than that. We're about to hand a massive amount of authority over to the executive branch. Doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican. And frankly, I may be a conservative straight down the line, but I don't care. I don't care which party's involved in controlling the White House. This is a bad idea. Look, are there issues that we need to address? Absolutely. And Vivek Ramaswamy lays them out brilliantly. But the argument that says that somehow the problems that we've got, oh, please, let's just give some more authority and power to government, this is a bad idea, people. Now, where do I think this is going? Well, I think it's going to go over the Senate. I'm not so sure this is going to pass for a lot of reasons. And part of it is, like I said, nobody's hands are completely clean on this thing. There's a lot of people in the Senate and the House who are getting a lot of lobbying dollars and a lot of big donor money from tech people. And the names, well, pretty easy to look them up. You can imagine who they are. For my part, like I said, don't do this. If we've got problems, that's fine, but there's got to be other ways to be able to address it culturally, which would probably, to me, be the better start. And then from there, we'll figure out some of the other things we can do as far as the technology side of it. But this supposed TikTok ban bill is a bad idea. It's going to lead down the road to a lot of things that nobody intended. But then again, isn't that what all well-intending legislation causes? That's what I think about it. What do you think? As we start to wrap up this video, please do me some favors as always. Number one, if you're not a subscriber to my channel, please do so. Number two, please hit the bell for notifications. I want to make sure that you're always aware when new material is coming out, be it a video or a live stream. Number three, leave a comment below. Number four, share the video around. And finally, give me a thumbs up. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative, and I will see you next time.